Hi, welcome back to Taken Seriously with me, Lauren Hopkins, the director at Grace. This podcast series brings you HR leaders to discuss some of the great work carried out throughout lockdown to engage with and support remote teams, the reality and the challenges of the HR profession, and their focus moving forward. Today, I was joined by Catherine Allen, who has the best job title as Head of Keeping People Happy at Ella's Kitchen. They employ 82 people, all of whom are based from their barn in Henley, and their organic toddler and baby food can be found in retailers across the UK and into Europe. Catherine has been with the business for over 8 years and is truly passionate about helping people reach their full potential. And as another local business and a brand I know from the shelves, I was really excited to have her join us today. Great, well, Catherine, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Nice to be here.
So I guess for the benefit of anyone watching or listening, could you just give us a brief background to the business and also what you do there?
Yeah, sure. So I work for a company called Ella's Kitchen, not to be confused with Deliciously Ella's. So Ella's Kitchen are an organic baby and toddler food brand, and we've been in existence for about 14, 15 years. We were set up by a chap called Paul Linley, and his mission really was to make food fun and healthy. So he created this very fun brand from scratch, and now we're in all the major retailers, and we also trade in Europe as well. So the brand has grown massively over a period of time. So there's now 82 of us. In normal life, we're based in a really lovely old barn in Henley with lots of outdoor space where you can go for walks or have outdoor meetings. But obviously now we're all working from home, as is the rest of the country, and settled into doing that.
Perfect. And before we really kick off, I've got two questions for you. One is, who comes up with the amazing job titles?
Well, do you know what? I'd love to claim credit for it, but it wasn't me. So I've been at Ella's for about 8 years, and we'd already started on that before I came. So we just kind of carried on a really good tradition as we grew up.
There are some fantastic ones. I've seen a few. I mean, yours, for example, is wonderful. What a great title to have. But tell for people listening, kind of give an example of some of them.
We have things like Head of Sums, which is finance. We have Head of Deals, which is all about sales. We've got people who are Making Friends, which is our I can always not remember the real title for them. It's marketing.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, there's all sorts of really fun ones. Head of Clockwork. So all the titles in Clockwork are operations. So they're getting lorries all over the country. So making things run like clockwork.
That's brilliant. And that ties quite nicely into my second question to kind of kick us off with, which is, what is it really like to work there? Because from an outsider looking in, who's followed the brand for a while and, you know, seen things published and new pictures and from the website, it looks like one of, if not the most fun places to work. And it genuinely looks like you are all having such fun.
Yeah, we definitely do. And I know people might say, well, you would say that in your position, but that's the feedback we get as well. So the thing that keeps it fun is our culture. And that's very much built on our values. So I'll take you through the values if you don't mind, because I think they sum up really well what we're all about. So we have 5 values. They're very simple. So it doesn't take ages to explain them, because everything we do, including the job titles, is how a child would explain something. So the values are, we're childlike. That's our first one. And as I've explained with Paul's journey, that was really important to the brand from the beginning. So seeing things through the eyes of a child and trying to keep things simple is very much part of this. So childlike is really about having fun, being spirited, enjoying yourself, but it's also about being open and honest. So if you imagine a 2-year-old without any of the temper tantrums or wetting incidents or anything, that's what childlike is all about. So for us, that comes alive with dressing up. We still do a bit of that online, but we did a lot of that in the barn. Quizzes, games, every occasion you can think of. So Halloween, back to school, Christmas, whatever it is, there's a dress up thing. And we used to have a lunch once a week where we all came together, which could be themed, or it might just be a normal kind of chat type lunch. But if you come to the barns, and lots of people give this feedback, there is a really lovely buzz in the air. There's a really nice feeling, and you will hear gales of laughter coming out of meeting rooms. So it is a really fun place to work. So that's We're Childlike. We Think Differently is all about innovation. So again, we were the first brand to market with a pouch. Loads of people do it now. So it's really important that we carry on being creative and innovative. And one of the things we did a couple of years ago was to train everybody up in how to think differently, because we just thought it's not that easy to say to somebody, be creative. So we have spent quite a lot of time on bringing that alive and giving people the tools to really think differently. And then we have We're Good to Each Other, which is where my role often operates, really. So this is all about treating each other with fairness and respect. And my mantra is happy, healthy people do the best work. That's very much how we've set up all of our people practices at Ella's. But Good to Each Other, of course, applies to everybody. So it's really about the way that we treat each other to create this really lovely family type atmosphere. And then we have our two more sort of commercial values. So We Want to Win is all about being focused, and never giving up is one of the things within that. So this has been super important to us this year, and I'm sure we'll come back to this a bit, but what we've really focused on in the last year is building up people's mental and physical resilience so that they are able to demonstrate this value really well and perform at their best. And then the final one is We're Business Minded. So whilst obviously it's a fabulous place to work, we are a business, and we have lots of brilliant business minded people who really want to succeed. So business minded is about our commercial success, but it's also about making a difference. So how can we improve things from a people and planet and product point of view? All of those things are really important to us to create a sustainable workplace. So hopefully that sums up for you what it's all about. And I can honestly say that the values sum up what it's like to work at Ella's. And I know from, people coming to interview will probably know our values better when they come for their interview than they know the values of their existing company, because they're simple and engaging and easy to reel off.
And that's really interesting, because all companies have values. But so often it is just lip service. It's, these words are graffitied onto the wall.
That's
or,
right.
They're kind of sprawled over the website. But actually, when you go and see them, or, the work that they do, that's not mirrored at all. They're just words. But that sounds like the complete opposite here. It's clearly woven into day-to-day practice throughout the business, which is great.
Yeah, definitely is. I mean, it's really woven into everything. So we talk about them a lot. It's how we make a lot of our decisions, and we also have done training on them. We've done workshops on them. They're right the way through our recruitment process, as you can imagine. They're part of our appraisal and performance process. We're bonus partly on the basis of demonstrating the value. So it goes right through everything. I think the stuff on the wall is fine, but all it is a visual cue. It doesn't do the job at all.
Yeah, you've got to back it up with something.
You have.
And so when you talk about incorporating that into your recruitment strategy, you would then look for those values in someone over, let's say, any sort of experience. That would come sort of first and foremost, would it?
They're both important. I mean, for some roles you need somebody with a certain amount of experience, but I think what we've done really well is to look at how we promote people internally. And that's where we already know somebody, we know they can demonstrate the values, we know they want to learn and develop, and therefore we're prepared to take a risk, is probably the wrong expression, but to invest in them to go into a job where they haven't necessarily got what we would call the right skills. So I think from a recruitment point of view, if somebody hasn't got the values, they're not going to be working at Ella's. If somebody hasn't got the skills, but they've got the values, maybe they will. It really depends on the nature of the role and also the team. So, if you have an inexperienced team, you want to bring somebody in with certain experience. But values are very, very core to what we're looking for.
Yeah, great. And I mean, I understand, and I mean, this is probably more from a size perspective, but we're a company of 4. And so we never, didn't we ever taken someone on who's got prior recruitment experience.
Yeah.
And what I look for first and foremost is someone who's going to share the same values as us.
Yes.
Not at all is going to fit as in the same. That's you don't want
Yes.
you don't want that. You don't want a company of all the same people at all.
Definitely.
But just people who share the same sort of ethos and everything. That's something you can tell very, very quickly. And I agree. I think that generally does work. Aside from the fact, if you need an accountant, yes, you need to have some prior skills.
That's right.
But I know exactly what you mean. I think that generally, on the whole, is a more successful way to go than just looking down a skills perspective.
And skills you can learn, and it really depends on have you got the time and resources to provide that learning for somebody. But I think values and demonstrating the values, that's more difficult to change behaviours in. So if you've got a good baseline from somebody, then I think that can pay dividends. And I think people are more willing to learn and more able to learn if they're in the right environment as well. So if you've got that values-based culture, then I think in general you can bring people up to the right skills level.
Yeah, I completely agree. Right, we're going to have to touch on the last few months. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're going to mention the C word, aren't you?
I won't use that word. I've got a few words I'm just banned from saying. But no, we're going to have to, particularly given the function that you work in. I mean, everyone's been impacted, but I know particularly, the HR function as a whole has been pushed into the spotlight like no other. So really just want to understand how, I guess, the business has been impacted, but also what effect that has had on your team directly.
Yes, I mean, I feel like I've learned more in the last 10 months than I have in 30 years, to be honest. It's been quite a learning curve for everyone in HR. So just, I suppose, to build on what I said about what we're like as an organisation and where we were before, I'm going to say it, COVID hit in March. Sorry. So as you can tell from my description, we love being together. So people would probably work from home maybe once a week, but we were never a big working from home type culture. We like to be together, we like to collaborate, and that really worked for us. So moving to working from home was quite a big change for us. Not from a technology point of view, that was fine, that was quite easy to set up. Really just from a connection point of view, it was a very different way of working. The other thing that happened to us, unfortunately, last February was our managing director died unexpectedly during February half term. She was very young. It was completely out of the blue. So this happened about 3 weeks before lockdown, and it was a terrible shock. And there's only 82 of us. We're a very close-knit team, so it had a big impact. And one of the things that really helped in those first few weeks was physically being with other people and being able to give someone a hug. And suddenly we couldn't do that. It was very early days. So I almost feel we had a bit of a double whammy going into lockdown in March because of that. So some of the things that we did to help that along, and this is partly explaining how it impacted on my team. So the first thing we did was to say to people, many of you, about 50% of the team, are now homeschooling and trying to do your jobs. So you do what you can, you work out the right schedule for you during the day, let your manager know, but we want you to put your families first, do as much as you feasibly can, but keep sensible for the sake of your well-being, and we will work out a way to carry on resourcing the whole team really well, and we'll pay you in full while all of that's going on. So I think that immediately took away the anxiety of financial security, but also people felt relaxed about saying, I just can't work in the mornings because I've got to sit down with my 6-year-old and my 7-year-old to do homeschooling, but my partner can take over in the afternoon. And that's fine as long as people are really honest and they're clear in their diaries about what they're doing. So that was step one. The other thing that we did, which I think really came from my team, because a lot of them are mental health first aiders, was to ramp up our mental health first aid provision. So we had people in place. People knew who they were, but we started being much more proactive. So one of the things we did was to produce a bi-weekly newsletter, which we're still doing. And in that, we all talked about our own experiences. And I think because we did that, people felt much more confident to come forward and say, I'm really struggling, and to get help from us. And we've also just done some fun things as mental health first aiders. So we've sent out podcasts. We sent out a Kit Kat because we thought people are not taking a break, have a Kit Kat.
I like that.
So just ways of giving people a little sort of moment, really. So mental health first aiders were really important. The other thing related to that was resilience training. So I already mentioned that want to win is one of our values. We felt what we really all need help with is mental resilience to help us to deal with this situation. So one of my big failings, and I think a lot of HR people are like this, is I love to be a rescuer. So I see somebody that needs help and I rush in and I scoop them up and I get it sorted out for them. So the big learning for me is you cannot be a rescuer, because most of the issues from lockdown came from people's personal setup. So either, it might be a pre-existing mental health condition, for example, where they needed additional help, or the homeschooling was extremely stressful, or other family members were ill, a variety of things. So the issues are generally generated by people's personal lives, but they're a whole person. So, that is going to affect their work. So the big learning for us was, let's provide some training and tools to help people become more resilient, because we cannot solve all these problems for them. So we ran an online 6-week program in a few cohorts with a company called Kin & Co. And for me personally, I found that life-changing. So one of their modules was about self-sabotage, and just identifying where we all do things that do not help us at all was amazing. And I know lots of people took things from that. So it was quite eye-opening for a lot of people. That finished probably as we came to the end of the last lockdown. But all the tools are things we're still using. So my team will prompt people, say, why not have a conversation about this in your one-to-one? I'll work with the leadership team about perhaps we could reintroduce these things in our team meetings, for example. So that was something that came from my team, really, that they got very involved in. Maintaining connections was really important. So my team put together little support groups. So we had one for parents, we had one for people living on their own, we already had one that I run for the menopause. So we kept those things going, and it was also thinking about what other ways can we bring people together. So as part of the resilience program, we put people together with buddies, so they had someone to talk to. My team set up a weekly sort of catch up and a cuppa sessions where people can just drop in for a chat if they want to. So, they have been amazing, really. My team have done absolutely loads of things, and I would say in general, there has been a massive focus on well-being. We already were focused on it, but to be honest, I think that's our primary focus now.
Yeah.
Because if you don't provide support, I think this is an environment where people can easily sink if they haven't got people to support them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, and actually going back to our conversation we had before this, where we were talking about the size of the business and the support they can give to their employees. And I think I sort of stressed to you that actually a lot of our clients are sort of SME type businesses, and probably like yourselves, really want to focus on employee wellbeing, and this likely be their one and only, if not now. But you guys have implemented a wellbeing strategy and a while back, and I guess that's still going. But for a lot, they're just unsure of where to start. Funds, I think, is always for a small business going to be one of the main concerns. But actually, a lot of the stuff you've just talked about, that the support groups, that internally doesn't cost anything.
Totally.
And I think that's what people need to remember, that it's not about trying to match some of the big corporates who have, endless amounts, endless budgets to spend on things. It doesn't need to be expensive.
No.
That's not what employees care about. They just want to be supported, and support can come for free, if not, very little, can't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say to organisations, start with mental health first aiders, because that's a very low cost course. I think it's about 150 quid to go on that, and it's absolutely fantastic. So the skills that you get from that and the resource that you can have in place massively help. So that's a really good start point. I would say something for managers. So just making sure that your managers know how to handle this. And again, that doesn't have to be expensive. It could just be someone, who's working in HR, who's got that kind of people focus, to surf the internet for all the incredible resources that are out there now. So there are webinars coming out of our ears on the internet. So if you can just pull together some of those and get your managers to watch those and talk about it to help them, again, that's no cost. And yeah, the support groups are great, because what that gives you is just feeling I'm not on my own. So there are other people who are feeling exactly the same way as me. So I think the parenting group was probably the one where I saw that the most. We were all feeling, why aren't I the Instagram mum who's doing handicrafts and producing these amazing pieces of homework? And just to say, I've had another email from school, they haven't done their homework, I really shouted at them today. Whatever it is, and not to feel alone is a fantastic feeling that, as you say, comes for free.
Yeah. And actually looking at and like you said, the different groups that you've got, it's sometimes, and I guess it's up to everyone, sometimes you kind of all pull together in one big support group just for the whole company to talk about. But actually dividing it into subgroups, I guess, is probably nicer, because everyone is going through very different situations. Even if it's people struggling with the homeschooling, everyone's still got their own personal circumstances that they're struggling with. But to group it so everyone in that little bubble is going through the same, that probably encourages people. Because one thing that is good, I think, has encouraged people at the moment to say, I actually could do with a bit of help, and not being too proud to actually say I'm struggling. And that's at all levels. I think that's one thing that has been, I think quite prevalent throughout the whole of this. A lot of my my clients, sort of small business owners as well, have said, this is the first time I've actually held my hand up and said, I'm tired, I'm struggling, I need help. A lot of it's falling on me. And I think actually if it comes from the top as well, from the managers, and they are openly talking about their struggles, that's really going to help teams say, oh, okay, this is okay, this is an open place, this is okay to kind of talk about it. Whereas
we definitely did quite a bit of that as a leadership team. So interesting, we have got some of the leadership team on the mental health first aider group, so that helped. But as a leadership team, various ones of us made videos saying, this is the kind of week I've had.
Okay.
Just to show, that, some of it's good, because some of it is good. I've been able to exercise more this week. I've spent more time with the kids, but gosh, I had a really difficult day because I was on a call with Tesco and my 3-year-old running, or whatever it is. So people see that, you're right, and they think, oh, well, if they're saying it, then I can say it too. So I think we've always had that good to each other culture, but I think we're probably more honest than we have ever been. And that includes me as well, because I think a lot of HR people think I can't show my emotion because I've got to be the blank sheet of paper. And until this crisis, I think I really believed that I had to absorb everything. But the power of showing that you struggle sometimes just opens the door to people confiding in you and getting your help.
Yeah, I've definitely learnt that, for sure. I'm very proud, and I did refuse. I would just be absolutely fine on the surface like a swan, and you'd never know if I don't show stress at all, but underneath, probably just sweating.
Yeah,
but
absolutely
that's not
right.
healthy. And I think it's just, there's such a stigma that, if you say you're struggling or it's a weakness. And actually I think it's the complete opposite. I think it shows real strength for someone to actually pull their hand up and say, right, I don't know the answer to that, or I do need a bit of help, I need a pause. And that shift in it becoming more of a strength than a weakness has been great, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that was what was really great about focusing on resilience and giving people tools, because yes, you do have to sit with that feeling of I need help and I'm feeling really crap. But at the same time, you can start thinking about, right, well, what do you think you could do, and go into that coaching conversation. Because people have got the tools, they've had some training, they've got things to draw on now. They've survived 2 lockdowns, most people have. So, what did you do last time that really helped you? So just making sure you move the conversation on, let people have their emotions, of course, but help them to come up with their own solutions and do a bit of coaching.
Definitely. And I guess, well, it sounds like you've managed to keep engagement levels high, as high as you possibly can throughout. I guess lots of people are sort of testing that, but do you feel at the moment that engagement levels are still, for a business, relatively high, or do you feel at the moment into the third?
No, they are high. They are high. So we do a survey twice a year, and we have a net promoter score as part of that. So we ask people how likely are you to recommend Ellis as a place to work. So our net promoter score for the summer was about, I think it was 76%. So it's very, very high. So the FMCG average is about 30%. So incredible.
Wow.
We're just doing the survey again, so we'll see. I think another thing that's really important to organisations is to keep focusing people on purpose. So why are we here? So our mission is to help children have a healthy relationship with food. So that is what we're all about. And in normal times, we would have had volunteering opportunities where, for example, you go on a farm trip with kids from a local school, and we've sponsored the trip, and you can physically see kids understanding where food comes from, going to a market garden, having an Ellis pouch. It becomes extremely real. And we can't do that, but what we still can do is to, for example, play a little video. So somebody sent in a really cute video of their child eating an Ellis for the first time, for example. So find ways to bring it back. And in lockdown last time, we did things like donate what we would have spent on our weekly lunch to a local school for their lunches, things like that. So what can you do to make people feel good about working for this company? And that's where culture and values are so important. What's the essence of why we're here? So I think you can keep reminding people of the company purpose and what they're engaged in. I think what people are not engaged in is lockdown. It's different. So if you can keep people focused on work, which is, it gives you a purpose, it gives you a routine, it gives you social interaction. So there are lots of things that you can do as an organisation to make people feel more positive than if they were sitting on their own in lockdown. So I think work can be a lifeline for people. And I think at the moment, you can still engage people even when they're not feeling great about lockdown.
Yeah. No, you're right. It is. They are two separate things, and you can be disengaged about lockdown, which I would totally understand.
Yeah.
But you can also be disengaged with work if actually you don't have a purpose, you don't feel you're getting the support. Because I think, some people at the moment just, they almost feel like they are in that sort of December period, when the lull up to Christmas. Some people I've spoken to, sort of more candidates, don't really feel like they've come back, right, kickstart the year, we've had our kickoff meeting, we've got purpose, we know what our objectives are, we know what we're trying to achieve individually and together. It's just kind of tied into December, and so that lack of just not really knowing where their role lies, what the purpose of it is, what they're supposed to be doing is means that they're just not engaged in either or. And that's just a recipe for disaster, I think. And and that needs to come from the
you've got
business
to
as
talk
well.
to people, haven't you? And you've got to bring people together quite
Yeah.
quickly. So, one of the things I did on Tuesday was send out a video just saying, hi everyone, happy new year. We're in this situation again. I know for some of you it will be really hard, just reassuring you we're taking the same approach as last time. We have all these people to help you. Just getting people back on the footing of, oh, okay, I am back at work, I'm back at work at Ella's, it's all going to be okay. And obviously for us, we are very focused on Brexit. So we are manufacturing in Europe at the moment, shipping back to the UK and then shipping back into Europe for some of it. So, that definitely gives people a focus. So if you're fortunate enough not to have a Brexit, to get people back to work, I think managers and leaders really need to, find what is the thing that's going to get that person engaged. So is it what we're doing as a company that's really exciting? So, for example, Brewdog recently announced we'll open up our offices for vaccinations. So, is it something like that, or is it just reminding you all we've actually got a really exciting year ahead? These are the things that we're going to be working on in team meetings, getting the team engaged in. This is what we're all working on. These are the things to look forward to. Asking them what are the things to look forward to, because I think you can kind of forget that over the Christmas period, can't you? So just, oh yeah, no, there is that thing that we're working on. I think where it's much more difficult is where you've got a company who are struggling at the moment. So we work in food, and food is one of the few industries at the moment that is not massively affected by this. So if you're outside of food, that is much more of a struggle. And I would have thought, what you've got there is communication. Even if you've got nothing to say, but just keep communicating with people, even if they're on furlough, just keeping the connection there.
Yeah, my thing is just over communicate. I just don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like you said, even if there is actually nothing to communicate, people just want to hear from you. And that's really important for businesses. You can't expect your teams to be feeling motivated or engaged, or if you're not telling them what's going on, or you need to make them feel inspired, even if it is difficult. You've got to make them believe that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there are things to look forward to. There are good things to come. If we do things together, you can't expect people to be following, a company who aren't giving them any hope. And that hope
absolutely
is so important at the moment. More than anything, I think. So what are your, at the moment, I guess, you obviously touched on wellbeing being the most important. We can have a chat about that before we go, but your main focus right now, any sort of initiatives that you're looking to implement?
Wellbeing is definitely our focus. So we're building on things that we already have in place. So we're back on mental health first aiders. We've got the support groups back up and running. So that's going back in people's diaries, because they dwindled a bit after the big lockdown. People didn't feel they needed it so much. So we've got those back on track again. And just, I guess, sort of galvanizing the leadership team and managers on getting back to having some of those conversations. Big thing for us is going to be the homeschooling piece. So people are in this sort of settle down period this week of, what's going on? What's going to be my schedule? How is the work coming in from school? So we're all just sort of waiting to see how that shakes down for people. So I think resourcing is going to be something that we'll look at. So last time we did a little bit of sort of resource moving. So in my team, for example, I have the facilities team. The barns were closed. They've still got stuff to do, but there is time for them to help other teams out. So they helped on our customer care. I can't speak. Customer care line, because a lot of the people in the team had kids at home, and when you're on a sensitive call, you don't really want to be interrupted by kids. So my team helped out with that. So I'm sure we'll be doing a bit of creative resourcing as well.
Excellent. So that is number one without a doubt, and probably the focus for the next, or who knows, the next, definitely, let's say 3 to 6 months.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I think another thing that is always in the back of our minds and needs to start coming to the front is we will be going back to some semblance of normality at some point this year. I'd hate to say when. But just thinking about, helping people to return to the barn. So we've already said we're expecting you to be in probably 2 days a week. That's our hunch. So that will balance your need for flexibility and some of the positive well-being things we've had about, being able to go for a walk and things like that, or go to a yoga class or whatever it is. So protect that. But as I said at the beginning, the connection and the culture is really important. So we do want people to come back into the barns. So, we know from a logistics point of view, we'll probably do that. But how are we going to act? So how are we going to sort of regenerate the culture that is already there? And you can still see it now. But a year plus is a long time. So there's going to be a period of adaptation. So we're going to have to turn our thoughts to that. And how we sort of come back to, again, it'll be a new way of working, because we'll be in a kind of hybrid type world rather than all in the office or all from home. So yeah, we definitely need to think about that. And I think also, obviously we're entering this period of recession now. So what we're keeping an eye on is, what are people's spending habits? What are their eating habits? So, all companies will be thinking from a consumer perspective as well.
Eating too much, I can tell you personally.
Gosh, well, yeah, you're not alone there. Don't worry. I finally managed to have a night on the sofa without cheese and biscuits last night after 20 nights of doing it and really enjoying it.
Yeah, it's my waistband, as I'm sure most people are not best pleased with me. I just normalised 10 p.m. cheese boards throughout the whole of December.
Gosh, yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
It's lovely, but it's yeah. I'm doing dry Jan and I'm doing.
Oh, you're very good. Well done.
Yeah,
and I gave that up when I heard Boris's announcement on Monday. I thought I can't do dry Jan.
I probably would have done had I not already told people, but again, I'm very proud. I've told people, and if I say I'm doing it, I will do it. So I thought I'm actually glad I've committed now, because I would have probably opened the fridge, pour myself a nice glass of wine.
Well, good for you. Brilliant. You'll feel better than the rest of us by February.
Right, hopefully, but I've not given up chocolate, so I don't know how it's going to pan out. But I won't keep you too much longer, I promise. I wanted to kind of almost end by just talking about your learnings and what perhaps you've learned about yourself, maybe personally, professionally. I know one of them you've mentioned earlier about saying it's actually okay to kind of put your hand up and say I can't rescue everyone. But anything else you think?
Well, definitely the biggest one for me has been don't be a rescuer. And I think the other big one is, I knew this anyway, we all know this, but how much individual issues and challenges affect people's work. And you can never 100% anticipate how people are going to react in this situation. So I think focus on the individual and really understanding what life is like for them. It's reinforced how important it is for me.
It sounds like throughout all of this, if I was an employee of Ella's, I'd be dying to get back to the barn, because it just generally sounds like
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think we've got a mixture. Everyone's different. Some people are loving being at home and have got quite a nice routine set up, and it's fine. Other people are desperate to be back in the barns full time. A lot of people, I think, are saying, we've quite liked the flexibility aspect of this. So a couple of days in the barn is probably the right kind of balance. If people want to come in for 5 days when we're back, they're welcome to, by the way. We're not saying you're not allowed to, but offering flexibility. It's quite funny, actually. I went to a seminar the other night on predictions for 2021.
Okay.
Which was it was run by a company called Tortoise, and it was a group of journalists, gambling experts, interestingly, pollsters, pundits. And one of their predictions was the death of the office has been grossly exaggerated. So most of this year is still going to be, a mixture of getting vaccines, social distancing, all of that kind of stuff. So they thought by 2022 we would all be desperate to get back into the office, and the whole novelty of working from home would have worn off. So who knows?
That's interesting. I definitely think when people say, you know, at the beginning, everyone said, right, this is it, everyone's going completely virtual, and I definitely disagreed with that, because I know some businesses operate like that fine. I know for us, we would never be fully virtual, particularly being we're a people-based business, and very much like you, we wouldn't be fully. But I think, yeah, absolutely right, the flexibility and looking at how you can work with your teams to make them, you know, as much productive as they can be, and juggling other commitments, then fantastic. And it sounds like you guys have got a team with a really, really strong connection, who love to be together and kind of are productive together and are innovative when they're together. And that's something you guys have clearly worked really hard to achieve, and that's something you should be really proud of.
Oh, thank you. I mean, we have got an amazing team. And I think I suppose from a practical point of view, creative collaboration, I think, has been massively challenging. I still haven't found the best way of doing it. I know you can get virtual whiteboards and all those kind of things, but it just feels different, doesn't it?
I've moved it.
Oh, you've got an actual whiteboard. I love it.
One that
I love it.
I'm a little bit old school on a couple of things I just have to have written down here, so I just bought myself a little whiteboard.
Oh, good for you. Well, I think I might do that. I'm finding I've got flip chart withdrawal symptoms. I love a flip chart, and I haven't been near one for months now.
I love it. I think it's been great. You know, the sort of the tech, the innovation, all of this stuff has been great, and being able to communicate. But there are a few things, my paper diary, which I like to write in, and kind of my plan for the day, my notebook, and my whiteboard. I just like to have like this, and then I'll do tech. That's fine.
Oh, brilliant. I think the other thing is choice. So what people have been missing is a choice, and I think if we as employers can give people more of a choice on how they want to work, I think that will go down really well.
Yeah, choice in everything, choice in work, out of work, what you can and can't do. That's probably the biggest thing since the beginning, you know, of everything going on, is just the choice of everything has really been taken away.
That's right.
That's, I think, the biggest thing. But I won't take up any more of your time. I think that's a perfect place to end. And thank you so much. I'm really pleased we got this episode in.
Yeah, thank you. It's been lovely to chat. I've really enjoyed it as well.
And to you. And thank you for people who are watching or listening. Stay safe.